I do not love working two jobs. You guys should already know.
I work 3 jobs and I hate it.
I work 3 jobs and I definitely hate it.
3 million Americans are currently working 2 jobs. That figure, recorded in November 2025 by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, is the highest since the agency began tracking multiple job holders in 1994. The national unemployment rate remains low. Wages have nominally increased. By standard measures, the labor market is functioning, and yet more Americans are working multiple jobs than at any point in the last 30 years. That combination demands an explanation. The federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. It has been $7.25 an hour since July 24, 2009, the longest period without a federal minimum wage increase in U.S. history. In that same 16-year window, the Consumer Price Index for rent rose 54%. A full-time worker earning the federal minimum wage takes home approximately $15,080 per year. The 2024 federal poverty guideline for a single-person household is $15,060. The minimum wage clears the poverty line for one person living alone by $20 a year. Add a child, and that worker is below the poverty line. The National Low-Income Housing Coalition calculated that in 2025, a full-time worker needs to earn $33.63 an hour to afford a modest 2-bedroom apartment at fair market rent, and $28.17 for a 1-bedroom. The federal minimum wage covers less than a quarter of what housing actually costs. But this is not exclusively a minimum wage problem. The average hourly wage earned by renters across the United States in 2025 is $23.60 an hour, still more than $10 below the 2-bedroom housing wage. Even accounting for higher state and local minimum wages, the average minimum wage worker would need to work 116 hours a week, nearly 3 full-time jobs, to afford a 2-bedroom unit. In no state, in no metropolitan area, in no county in the United States can a full-time minimum wage worker afford a modest 2-bedroom rental at fair market rent. Against that backdrop, the math of the second job becomes clear. What is less clear is whether a second job actually solves the problem. Bureau of Labor Statistics data shows that workers holding multiple jobs average $841.66 per week in total earnings. Workers with a single job average $923.46 per week. People working 2 jobs earn less per week on average than people working 1. The additional job is not closing the gap. It is consuming time and labor without proportional return. The demographic profile of multiple job holders has also shifted substantially. As of 2024, more than 50% of Americans working multiple jobs hold a college degree, up from 45.1% in 2019. African American women represent the highest share of any tracked demographic group, with 6.2% of employed Black women holding multiple jobs. Women overall are more likely than men to work multiple jobs, 5.7% of employed women versus 4.7% of employed men. Research consistently documents that women carrying multiple paid jobs continue to bear a disproportionate share of unpaid household and caregiving labor alongside those jobs. Among the 50 largest metropolitan areas, Milwaukee has the highest concentration of multiple job holders at 9.1% of its workforce, despite average hourly wages of $31.18. Phoenix ranks second at 8.8%. San Jose, California, where average hourly earnings reach $58.25, the highest among major metros, has the lowest rate of multiple job holding at 1.3%. The relationship between wage levels and the need for a second job is direct and measurable.
Housing costs are the primary driver. Between 2020 and early 2026, rents across 30 major U.S. cities rose an average of 36%. Miami saw the steepest increase at 53%, bringing the typical rent there to $2,645 per month. Tampa rose 50%. Riverside, California rose 48%. The typical asking rent nationally reached $2,024 in April 2025, a 3.4% increase from April 2024. These are not prices for premium units. These are median market rates for standard rental housing. Home purchase has become similarly inaccessible. The median U.S. home price in 2025 is $416,900, 5 times the median annual household income of $83,150. In 1985, that ratio was 3.5 times income. In nearly half of metropolitan areas today, a buyer needs to earn more than $100,000 annually to afford a median-priced home. In 2021, that threshold applied to only 11% of markets. The median age of a first-time homebuyer has reached a recorded high of 38 years old. Nationally, the average time required to save for a down payment is 14.4 years. In California, that figure exceeds 25 years. The tipped minimum wage has been $2.13 an hour since 1991, 34 years without adjustment. Tipped workers are legally required to receive tips sufficient to reach the regular federal minimum, but enforcement is inconsistent, and wage theft in the sector is well documented. That $2.13 figure has survived through 6 presidential administrations and has not been addressed by Congress in any meaningful way. The structural cause behind all of this is the separation of worker compensation from worker productivity. The Economic Policy Institute documents that since 1979, U.S. worker productivity has grown more than 3 times faster than pay. Federal Reserve data shows that corporate profits rose from less than 6% of GDP in 2000 to 11% of GDP by 2024. The economy produced substantially more wealth per worker over that period. The distribution of that wealth did not follow. If the federal minimum wage had tracked productivity gains since 1968, it would be approximately $26 an hour today. It is $7.25. That gap has compounded over decades. Consumer prices rose 24.6% between August 2020 and August 2025 alone. Bank of America Institute economist Joe Wadford, analyzing late 2025 data, noted that wages for lower-income workers were growing at approximately 1%, while inflation was running at 3%. His framing was direct. If your bills are increasing by $300, but you're only making $100 more, how are you supposed to keep up with that? Wadford described the divergence between higher income and lower income wage growth as the widest since 2016, characterizing it as a K-shaped economy, in which the same aggregate data conceals 2 very different lived experiences. The financial consequences are visible across multiple indicators. Total U.S. credit card debt reached $1.277 trillion in the fourth quarter of 2025, the highest balance recorded since the Federal Reserve Bank of New York began tracking the figure. Balances have risen by $507 billion since the first quarter of 2021, a 66% increase in under 5 years. The national average credit card balance among cardholders carrying debt is $7,886 at an average interest rate near 24%. At that rate, minimum monthly payments do not meaningfully reduce principal. The debt accumulates while the cardholder works to service it. PNC Bank's 2025 Financial Wellness in the Workplace report found that 67% of workers describe themselves as living paycheck to paycheck, up from 63% in 2024. Bank of America Institute data classifies 24% of households as living paycheck to paycheck, defined as spending more than 95% of income on necessities, including housing, food, gas, utilities, and childcare. Nearly 1 in 4 Americans has no emergency savings. By the fourth quarter of 2025, Americans were spending 92% of disposable income on consumption. The median retirement savings across all working-age Americans is $87,000, a figure that reflects how many workers in the lower income brackets have accumulated effectively nothing. 28% of American workers have taken on debt to cover daily expenses. 30% have relocated to lower-cost housing to manage costs. Bankrate's 2024 Side Hustle survey found that 36% of Americans have a side hustle in addition to their primary employment. These are not isolated responses from a small segment of the population. They are widespread adaptations to a structural imbalance between income and cost. The workforce consequences extend to health. A Deloitte survey found 77% of U.S. workers report some level of burnout. A March 2025 survey by Talker Research found 68% of Gen Z employees are experiencing burnout at work. Research cited by Career Minds indicates that burnout now peaks around age 25 among Gen Z and millennials, compared to an average peak age of 42 in the prior generation. The percentage of Gen Z consumers living paycheck to paycheck rose from 57% in January 2023 to 69% in January 2025, a 12-point increase in 2 years. Total national work hours rose 10.7% between the first quarter of 2007 and the fourth quarter of 2024, reaching 296.7 billion hours. The gig economy absorbed much of this secondary labor. Approximately 59 million Americans now freelance, representing roughly 36% of the total workforce. Platforms built around short-term contracts and independent work expanded significantly after 2020, coinciding with the elimination of commutes that remote work created. The side hustle became a normalized feature of American working life, not because workers chose it, but because the gap between income and cost required it. 9.3 million Americans are working 2 jobs. Total credit card debt is at an all-time high. The median first-time homebuyer is 38 years old, a recorded high. The time required to save for a home averages 14.4 years nationally and exceeds 25 years in California. Burnout is peaking at younger ages with each successive generation. The tipped minimum wage has not changed since 1991. The federal minimum wage has not changed since 2009. Corporate profits as a share of GDP have nearly doubled since 2000. Worker productivity has grown more than 3 times faster than worker pay since 1979. Every one of those figures points in the same direction. The American economy has, for several decades, generated substantial productivity gains and record corporate profits while systematically decoupling worker compensation from worker output. The second job is not a solution to that problem. It is evidence of it.